Welcome back to Believe in Mavs, but this time it is not just Believe in Mavs. It is also Believe in Bulls, a little crossover show reaction to last night's game between the Mavericks and the Chicago Bulls. I am joined by Nick Schultz, host of Believe in Bulls. He co-hosts that with CJ Watson. Go check out their feed. Make sure to see all the coverage that they do on the Bulls a little bit more in depth. But this show, you got both sides of it. You got two guys that'll try and be as impartial as they possibly can. Schultze, what's up, dude? How are you?
What's going on, Das? How you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Well, I've got the big smile on my face, which is norm for me, but also because of
I
last night.
smile through the pain.
Yeah. The Texas Rangers win the World Series. That was a huge deal. The Dallas Stars won, and of course, the Dallas Mavericks won another.
It's a hell of a night for
It
you.
was a hell of a night for the DF Dub, for the 2-1-4, and we'll talk and we'll focus on the Mavericks, of course, in this game against the Bulls. The Mavericks are one of the only remaining undefeated teams alongside the Boston Celtics. The Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Denver Nuggets last night, which I think a lot of Timberwolves fans were probably like, yeah, you saw what we did last year in the playoff series. We actually have a really good game plan against this squad. For another podcast, go check out our Nuggets or Timberwolves shows that are out there. But the Mavericks are undefeated. They're 4-0. The Chicago Bulls are 2-3. It was technically a clutch game. I'll ask for your initial thoughts, but my first reaction to this game is, while it was a clutch game and a clutch win for the Mavericks, I felt like I was slightly dissatisfied because they should have opened this game up at any given point throughout the night, especially in the second half. Tough to do that in the first half when Zach LaVine is shooting and playing how he was. But what were your initial thoughts on the game last night?
Well, the Bulls still can't shoot. That's pretty much proven.
Yeah.
I feel like they were also allergic to rebounding because the Mavs had 24 second chance points, which that cannot happen against any opponent, let alone a team that has Luka and a red hot Tim Hardaway. And for some reason, Grant Williams just decided to have a night. So it was unimpressive from the Bulls. I used it the last couple shows. I say it's better to be lucky than good sometimes. The luck seems to be kind of not there every game. They got lucky when Caruso hit the shot to win the first game of the year against Toronto. I feel like they got kind of lucky when they beat the Pacers because they only shot 17 threes in that game. I cannot believe they won a game where they shot 17 three-pointers. And this game, no Kyrie Irving, felt like an opportunity. You shut down Luka for the most part, and you let other guys beat you.
Yeah.
And you still can't rebound. That was my biggest takeaway. I had a bad taste in my mouth after this game because it felt like they had so many opportunities, but story last year, story this year, couldn't capitalize.
Yeah, and I felt the same way about the Mavericks rebounding opportunities or lack thereof in the first half, right? There was that one possession, I think it was in the second quarter, where the Bulls wrangled in 5 offensive rebounds, but exactly to your point, they didn't capitalize, right? And there were 2 offensive rebounds that the Mavericks got late in the fourth quarter from Derek Lively, the Rook, already making a massive impact.
I love that kid.
So good. Kicks it out to Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway capitalizes and knocks down those threes. I will say, just in the Maverick side of things, offensively, I want to tip my cap to the Bulls and Billy Donovan because I thought that the game plan, the defensive game plan, the doubles 30 feet away from the basket, they really, really worked well, at least for what they wanted to do. Now, the thing about the Mavericks when you're playing them, Grant Williams shot the ball really well. So did Tim Hardaway. Josh Green, not so much. Seth Curry shot well. Derek Jones shot well, right? In a little bit of a revenge game for him.
Yeah, it's a nice revenge game. I didn't have that on my bingo card last night at all.
But those opportunities that those spot up shooters get for the Mavericks, for the most part, are wide open. Like, wide open. So I know that is the game plan, but they are professional shooters. They are professional basketball players. They should be knocking down those shots. So it was absolutely an awesome affirmation for me offensively to see that happen. And not only were they hitting those shots, but I thought that they were making the right decision. So it's either, this is what you have as a spot up shooter. These kind of 4 things available to you. You either take the shot as soon as it gets into your hands, you pump, sidestep, and take that 3. You pump and dish to the other guy that's open on the wing if you're in the corner, or you pump and go and maybe take a dribble pull up, which is what Seth Curry did. And I thought almost every single time that Mavericks others were in that opportunity, they capitalized, which is huge.
See, here's my thing with the way the Bulls game plan. I thought it worked because the goal without Kyrie, you need to get it away from Luka.
Right.
Don't let Luka get hot because he's going to win the game single-handedly. I thought they did that, but their perimeter defense, this is a regular thing when CJ and I record. We're doing twice a week now. It's every day we're talking about the perimeter defense because Grant Williams and Tim Hardaway both made 7 threes. You can't have two guys
Right.
make 7 threes. I understand the
Just
game
force
plan.
them off the line and make them do something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I don't and not I mean not all of them were open. Some of them were like really they were tough shots, but you still two guys combined for 14 threes. Like that's just the defense, the ratings and everything. Their Bulls are middle of the pack. They're solid. 3-point defense though, just looking at the eye test, it hasn't been good. And I don't know how to change it, but the Mavs did the right thing. It was someone else has to beat you besides Luka. You got someone else to beat them,
Right.
and there they are now, undefeated, 4-0. And for the Bulls, it's another opportunity. They had opportunities to put their foot on the gas and not look back, and they didn't. I also feel like Nikola Vucevic has lost all touch from three. Like I don't know what happened. He's lost all touch outside of like the garbage time three he made.
Right. Well, to his credit, he did rebound the ball very well. And obviously, while
Sure.
he didn't have the touch from the 3-point line, he does within, that kind of 8 to 14 feet is his sweet spot. And
Oh, sure.
he never misses on that floater off
But
the,
he had a big three in the fourth quarter that would have, I think it would have either tied the
yep.
game or brought it within one possession, and they just missed it. And that he hasn't shot the ball well from three all year. And I'm like, I wouldn't have given the ball to him in that spot.
Right.
But he had the open look. I get you have to take it, but I've had a shoot or shoot mentality with this team. I need to rethink that after that sequence with 5 missed threes.
Yeah, well, when I'm watching, I like to play the game of with any opponents of the Mavericks. Like, do I think that whoever is taking this spot up three is going to make it? Like, what's my pulse on that? Like, do I feel that even before they release the ball, is it going through the net? And I can tell you that Kobe and Patrick Williams, even though Kobe actually had a pretty decent shooting night, and Patrick Williams, I just don't think they're ever going in for those two guys. And Vooch behind the line, like, and DeRozan, obviously when he's not shooting a 2-pointer, I have good faith and confidence that that's not going in either. So the shooting was very lackluster. I mean, Patrick Williams really, he kind of looks lost out there, man. I don't know what the vibe is in Chicago on him right now. And I know it's up and down, right? Like last season was a semi revelation, right? It was trending in the right direction. What have you seen from him in 5 games, and is it just well below what it needs to be?
So CJ and I both had picked Patrick Williams to have a breakout year this year. Like it's a big year, contract year. They
Yep.
got to decide on an option because they didn't come to an extension agreement, which they didn't think was going to happen based on his first. But he's in year 4 now. I lose track with the COVID time warp because he was the COVID draft. So I
Right.
always like and he missed a year because of injury. So I believe this is year 4 for him, and he's had 9 points in his last 3 games. They all came in one game. He's had 2 scoreless games in a row. The other day, we both came out and said Torrey Craig needs to be in the starting lineup instead of Patrick Williams.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan.
I was about to say he's the guy that I get more scared of when he's taking those
Yeah,
catch and shoot threes. Yeah.
right. And I also get the argument for putting Caruso in the starting lineup too, just because he can play any of the 5 positions. But I think Torrey Craig would be the guy to go to. With Patrick Williams, I'm a big fan of watch the game unfold and jump into it. Like there's a rhythm to it. Watch it on the bench, get a feel for it, jump in, and just it's kind of like in the analogy I guess I can use is like in Finding Nemo when he jumps into the current.
Yeah. The
Like
East
you
Australian
jump in,
current. Yeah, the EAC,
yeah, you
dude.
jump into
Yeah.
the current and you EAC and you just go right with it. Like
Yeah.
you're on the bench, you're watching the game, and CJ I was surprised CJ backed me up on this because he was someone who came off the bench. He said I was like on the right track. I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was coach speak that I was using, but I think Patrick Williams can benefit from that and maybe be one of those leaders on that second unit. And I would start Torrey Craig over Alex Caruso and keep Caruso on that second unit. But I get the argument either way. But something has to change regardless. Because Kobe White had a scoreless outing too, by the way, against Detroit, which you can't have a bad game against Detroit because I think that's a young, hungry team.
Well, you're definitely in trouble when your guy that's supposed to be coming off the bench, the quote unquote defensive stopper, ends up scoring more points in the game than Kobe White, who starts the game and plays 33 minutes at the point guard. Of course, I'm talking about Javon Carter, who is a guy I've always really liked. He played
Love Javon Carter.
really good minutes in Milwaukee when he was there, and for a myriad of other NBA teams now at this point. But to me, I look at the box score after the fact, and this is Captain Hindsight here, but why are Caruso and Javon Carter's minutes adding up to the minutes that Kobe White played? Right, like it.
Yeah.
From what I saw, and not only did Kobe White not do what you need him to do offensively and what he's capable of. He's not out there for his defense, right? But against a
No.
team like the Mavericks, in a situation where you're not quickly doubling Luca, then Luca's going to hunt him every single possession, back him down, and go to work, draw the double, kick it, worse, get to the paint and have an opportunity to have one of his classic decel and ones, or a dump off pass to Derek Lively. Like, I just he exposed y'all too much in a game against the Mavericks team where they have the number one or number two player in the NBA at identifying mismatches.
Yeah, I have high hopes for Kobe White. He's got the contract now. Go out and prove it. And I think every year he's kind of addressed a different part of his game. Last year the ball handling was a big thing. Maybe he can be that point guard of the future that I just don't think he is yet. I brought this up with CJ today when we recorded. It kind of hit me. Garpax, the old regime, Gar Forman, John Paxson, when they ran the front office, they'd keep leaning on when Derek got hurt. If Derek didn't get hurt, things would be different. With this team, when Lonzo Ball got hurt, he was that facilitator. He was that three-point shooter. He was that defender they needed. They haven't really replaced that, and they've kind of done by committee. And I would have added a guy like Javon Carter. If you could have brought him in last year, a guy like Torrey Craig in last year,
Yeah.
I think that changes things this year, but you waited too long because you didn't know Lonzo wasn't coming back. And I feel like that totally destroyed the momentum that this team had when they were the number one seed at one point. Could Kobe White prove me wrong and be this guy that can come in and be your knockdown 3-point shooter and lead the team in assists,
Maybe.
be your distributor? He could be, but through 5 games, I haven't really seen that yet. And if CJ would have started Io DeSumo in the
I
starting lineup.
at least given him opportunities. I mean, he
Yeah.
showed flashes, right? I think 2 years ago when you looked your best as you possibly have since
Mhm.
you've traded for Vucevic, like I thought Io was probably in the 7-8 man rotation, right? Your playoff
Yeah.
rotation. I don't necessarily know that Kobe White was, or if he was
No.
playing marginal minutes, right? Just some
Yeah.
sort of spark plug, almost like what we had Jaden Hardy do last night, right? Depending on
Sure.
the matchup, depending on the game, maybe he gets 12 to 14, but normally he's probably only getting in there for 4 to 6 minutes a night. Obviously, you have higher hopes for this guy, and hopefully he can get to that. But with other capable guards on the roster, it was definitely a head scratcher. But for me, as a Mavs fan, someone watching, I was totally okay with it. Um, and unfortunately, this is a season where you don't have that much time to figure things out, because if you don't figure things out come trade deadline, people are going to be calling for Zach. They're going to be calling for
Mhm.
DeMar, and I wouldn't blame those guys if they went to the front office and were like, "Hey, we need to. I'm looking to get out of here." And at that point, like, they're in Bulls rebuild mode, which to me it's what
I
they
don't want
should
to
have
do that
done.
again.
But already,
I don't want to do that again. You're in the third largest market in the country. I'm tired of rebuild, rebuild, rebuild. I
I get
think
it.
the last one put such a bad taste in my mouth because of the way it was handled. With you fired Hoiberg, and you immediately gave Jim Boylan you didn't give him the interim tag. You made him the full-time head coach, and the man was a bona fide laughing stock. Like, I used to make fun of his press conferences because it'd be the same thing, talk about heart and passion, and we're going to run suicides in practice. And next thing you know, they bring in the new regime comes in, they clean house.
Yeah.
I did not like the way that was handled with Gar Forman and John Paxson. And I think, like I said before, you have a whole different conversation. And I'm talking out both sides of my mouth when I do this. If Lonzo doesn't get hurt, this is a different conversation. But you're playing the hand you're dealt. You did not recover well from that injury. And now you're seeing the effects of, you might have to tear this thing down again, which that's twice in 5 years now.
Well, you
I
certainly
really
don't.
don't want to go through that again.
You don't want to lose out on the value of DeMar and Levine.
He's the number one trade chip, I think DeMar is. I think he's your top
Right.
trade chip. Levine's number two just because of the contract situation.
And I think a lot of GMs probably look at him as a 2-3 year asset, right? Until there's a steep decline just because of his age. Of course, Levine, you have more time. Um, but the problem right now is we're talking about Io, we're talking about Kobe and Patrick Williams, is if you want to remain competitive, Levine and DeMar DeRozan have to have the touches on this team.
Right.
And that's what we saw in the
And
first
so is
half.
Vucevic.
And Vooch would be third on that list, on that pecking order. That's what we saw in the first half, and how the Bulls were able to stay in it. And I think, a lot of discourse about the Dallas Mavericks this season is, can they defend better, right? And I saw a bunch of chatter just on Mavs Twitter at halftime that was like, "Oh my gosh, classic!" Like Zach LaVine torching them again, and then a lot of other people on Mavs Twitter kind of chirping back, being like, no, 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 you don't understand. And clearly you're not watching the game because Zach LaVine is hitting tough shots right now. These are contested threes, and that's normal for Zach LaVine. He's that
Mhm.
high prowess of a scorer. Um, but he's a high volume scorer. DeMar is a high volume scorer. And so it's a shame to see how this is kind of counterintuitive, right? For the plan for the future and what you want to do now. And if you want to win games, which of course you do, and of course those two guys do, they have to get all the touches, and they should be the ones that are putting the shots up. But then of course that curbs the development of the younger guys on the team, which is just, it's a bummer. It's not the situation you want to be in as a franchise.
No, and I think Billy Donovan's falling victim to a bad roster makeup. I just don't think this team is built for the 3-point shooting that he wants. I think you saw that. I'm going to keep bringing it up. When you had 5 3-pointers and you missed all of them,
Yep.
I in 2023, how is that possible that a team gets 5 3-point looks and misses all of them in one possession like that?
Open looks though too. Like
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm not talking like contested threes. Like
The Mavericks were just waiting for you to hit one. They were kind of like, we're done
Right.
with this possession. Can we move on with the game?
Yeah, you got it handed to you on a silver platter going, "Here, go ahead and score."
Right.
And you kept missing, and it's so frustrating. So the fact that I think Billy Donovan might end up being the fall guy, he entered the year as the favorite to be the first coach fired, which surprised me at the time, but with the way things have started, it might be trending that way, but I know the front office isn't going anywhere because it's Jerry Reinsdorf running the organization. It's Michael Reinsdorf kind of making the calls, but Jerry still owns it. They're notoriously loyal.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to see the front office get changed. I think you're going to see a coaching change and a roster turnover before you see anything. I cannot believe we're talking about this 5 games into the year, but that's how bad things have looked because they shouldn't have beaten Toronto. The only reason they didn't beat, if Fred VanVleet's on that Toronto team, Toronto's blowing them out.
Oh yeah.
Because Toronto misses that guy who can come in and hit that dagger shot. That's
Right.
what VanVleet was able to do. They miss him. And you beat Indiana. That was a good win, I guess, even though the game plan was unique.
Sure.
Like, it's
Indiana,
I'm
Indiana
frustrated.
had Boston dropped 155 on Indiana last night, so
Yeah.
although
Yeah,
we're at the point in the NBA season where it's like, look, like I'm not going to say like, oh, this team beat this team, but didn't beat that team. Like, that's unfair. It's so early. People are still finding
right.
their sea legs. And also the NBA is so deep. There's so much parity. There's so much talent in the league right now that you can't give any night off. Like, you just can't. And
No.
like, this is why when you're a Bulls team that's kind of in the middle and you're playing a Mavericks team without Kyrie, you have to win that game. And as me, as a
Exactly.
Mavs fan looking at that, I see this game, I see us playing impressively without Kyrie on the floor. There was one
Mhm.
moment where we had, I think, like Hardy, Exum, Josh Green, who, like Patrick Williams, this needed to be the year where he kind of took the jump, right? He just got the 3 for 41 contract. And he's been pretty mediocre. But the good thing about the Mavericks roster, and you can say as much as you want to besmirch it, but Nico Harrison has done such a good job in bolstering it up as much as he could with the available assets that he had, that we can hide Josh Green in certain games, and we can roll with
Mhm.
Tim Hardaway, and we can roll with Grant Williams and Derek Jones Jr. and Dante Exum if those guys are playing better. And we don't have to force Josh Green into becoming this thing that maybe he's not ready for. And I hope in the middle of the season, I'm eating my words a little bit here, and he catches stride and looks like a different player. But that's a luxury that the Mavericks have that the Bulls don't have. And for the Mavericks to win another game without Kyrie, it makes me feel like they are asserting themselves as a more legitimate on the edge contender potentially, right? There's everybody's a tier down from the Celtics and the Nuggets, in my personal opinion. Um,
I'd throw the Bucks in there too, but I get what you're saying.
but then you've got the Lakers, the Warriors, the Suns in the West at least. And I
Yeah.
think the more wins that the Mavs accumulate, especially against lesser teams, the more serious of a threat that they actually will be respected as, at least, broader NBA conversations.
Yeah, and I'm not going to count out the Mavericks ever because you have Luka's one of my favorite players in the
Right.
league, and I think if you can make it feels like a great experiment, is what I'm calling it with Kyrie. Just because you've got 2 guys who can be ball dominant, but are also known to pass the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you got 2 guys, their skill sets are similar but different. I feel like, and I think it's a great experiment that's going on. And if you can make that thing work, you're looking at something really special. And the fact that they looked as good as they did, take the competition factor out of it, because the Bulls they're just not a good team.
Yeah.
The fact that they're looking like they did against the Bulls without Kyrie is a good sign, because then if you put Kyrie back into it and he fits in as well as he should, you got something special down there. And I'm a big Derek Lively fan. I was a fan of his at Duke. Didn't expect this.
Yeah.
Did not expect him to kind of take off like this. I did not expect him to outduel Wembanyama when you guys played the Spurs. Like, it's a pleasant surprise as well. So now you've got that weapon in there too.
I'm not to backtrack on the Spurs game. This is a conversation that I had with Matt Tynan, who does Small Market Bias, a Spurs podcast on the Believe Network. It's so much easier for a guy like Lively when he comes in and there's a pre-written structure to the team, right?
Mhm.
The Spurs have no idea what their identity is right now.
Right.
The only person that's kind of puppet mastering this thing is Pop, and he'll give opportunities to Wembanyama as he sees fit, but he also has to nurture the rest of these young, NBA guys that he think could become potential all-stars. I don't know. Their talent evaluation is what their talent evaluation is, but they have time to figure it out. The Mavericks don't have time to figure it out, and that's one of the things that I've been really impressed with thus far with Jason Kidd is they're going into the games knowing exactly what they want to do, knowing how they want to attack, how they want to utilize guys like Seth Curry, like Dante Exum off the bench, who I think he might only have played through 4 games, not even a full NBA game at this point. I have been
Mhm.
so impressed with how he has picked his spots and how ready he has been to play when he's given that opportunity. And I think you saw that against the Bulls last night. And when guys know their role, they know how to attack when they're given the opportunity. And I think, again, like the rotation is so up in the air for this Bulls team. And that's why everybody looks lost out there, right? It's because they don't know. Patrick Williams probably thought he was going to play 34 minutes in this game. He ended up getting yanked and played 25 because I think Billy's
It's
trying
not
to
the
make
first time this year that's happened
right.
either.
Billy's trying to make in-game adjustments to cater to the matchup and who's hot and what's going on in the game. I do want to ask you. So Derek Jones Jr. at this point is a young journeyman, but he is
Yep.
young still. What, if any, of what he's done in the last 2 games, and I don't know how much of the previous game you caught against the Memphis Grizzlies, but he had 21 points and he shot incredibly well from the 3-point line. Are you surprised by what he did last night? Did you see flashes of that when he was in Chicago? Do we need to have a longer conversation about how NBA players are impacted when they're playing with Luka Doncic in comparison to how Bruce Brown played with Nikola Jokic last year and how much adulation we now give Bruce Brown? Like, what is going on with Derek Jones Jr. and what do I need to expect for the rest of the season out of that guy?
So I didn't catch much of the Grizzlies game. Just been in full college football mode
Sure.
too. Like anything around like a
Are
Saturday,
people
like
like
even a
sealing
even a
signs or
Sunday,
something?
like
Was that something like that happening? Yeah.
oh, I've written nothing about anyone named Connor Stallions. I've made no Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure references in the newsroom. Like it has been it's been a crazy couple weeks, Alex. Like it has been absolutely insane. But I caught obviously the revenge game factor with Derek Jones. The dunk on Levine had to feel pretty good. Like I did not have a revenge game on the bingo card, but when he was in Chicago, I saw him as that long athletic defender who could maybe knock down a jump shot here and there.
Sure.
I held my breath when he shot threes,
Yeah.
to put it in perspective. But maybe he's found a role playing alongside Luka. Maybe that's a factor. But I think maybe it's the situation too. Just because in Chicago, you didn't know what his role was.
Right.
He was off the bench. He'd come in. He wasn't like I'm going to come down and hit a three. I'm going to play lockdown defense. He was just kind of part of that bench unit. And maybe he's found a
Like a
role
someone's
in
got to get
Dallas.
minutes situation. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Like I don't get me wrong. When he came in, I thought the defense would have looked better just because he had that athleticism. He had that length.
Right.
And now that seeing what he did, 17 points, 3 threes, like that's not what you expected out of him
Well,
in Chicago.
and I want to praise the coaching a little bit because he started
Oh, sure.
0 for 3 from the field. He was
Right.
taking those spot up shots, the spot up threes, and getting good looks early in the game, early in the first quarter, and he missed them. And I was like, okay, this regression back to the norm. This is more so of what I expected. Last game, he hit 5 threes. I think it was 5 for 6 from the 3-point line.
Mhm.
Everyone that I talked to that's a Mavs fan was like, what the heck just happened last game against the Grizzlies? So it felt like, okay, we're back to what our expectations of this guy were. But them encouraging him to continue to shoot. And I think, that comes on the court and off the court. I know Luka is being more of a vocal leader. I know Kyrie certainly has been a vocal leader in this locker room. Probably doesn't get enough credit, I think, just in larger conversations about him because of his antics off the court. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but a guy that's really well liked in the locker room. And I think the encouragement for guys like him, for guys like Derek Lively, Grant Williams being a vocal leader. I think there was a moment in the game where, Luka was, for lack of a better term, bitching at the refs as he normally is ought to do. And
The Bulls announcers took note of that, by
they
the way.
took note of it. And Grant Williams
Yeah.
stepped in. And I think the discussion after the fact in the post game presser was like, if I can take that T for him, I'll take that tech, and I'll talk to the
Right.
refs about it. So yeah, I don't know. This Things feel good. Like everything's gelling right now in Dallas, and I'm waiting for that card to fall, and that the house of cards that maybe a lot of people think that it is to completely collapse. But right now, it's positive vibes, man.
Hey man, ride the wave. Like, just enjoy it. I mean, I remember when a certain team in Chicago looked like the number 1 seed in the East, and they were playing really well, and that was Solo at that point. And I'm talking about this team going, hey, they're really good. Should we talk about them as a legit contender? And then I was on a flight to Las Vegas and landed to the news that Lonzo and Zach LaVine got hurt in the same game,
Right.
and they weren't the same again. So I lost a ton of money in Vegas that weekend, and the Bulls lost their point guard for the rest of the while.
I'm sorry,
Like,
buddy.
it's all good. I deserved it, but it's been like it happens. But enjoy the wave while it's going. Like, ride it, ride the horse till a few
Yeah.
bucks. Yeah, it's a fun ride when you catch lightning in a bottle like this.
Well, I was just thinking about what I mentioned about the Jokic effect, right? And what I'm going to be paying attention to in regards to if Luca is having the same kind of impact, right? And the crossover, the sports crossover would be like the Brady quarterback, the Mahomes quarterback. Like, they just make
Right.
whoever relevant, whoever their receivers are. Now Rashi Rice is an absolute fantasy darling and an NFL darling, right? Because of the way that
I
he's
just
playing.
missed out on him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean that's a bummer because I think he's got a bright future as long as he stays in Kansas City and as long as Patrick Mahomes stays healthy. But you go and you look and see Dorian Finney-Smith gets a contract, right? That's an undrafted guy. Maxi Kleba
Mhm.
got a contract. Dwight Powell got a contract. Like, all these guys. Seth Curry gets like kind of introduced to the NBA through the Mavericks a little bit, and then he goes to Brooklyn, and obviously he's a part of the Kyrie, Harden, Kevin Durant teams. And for a lot of it, like, he was one of the second or third best guys on the court with KD because those other guys weren't playing.
Mhm.
And I'm just starting to come to terms with that. This is the impact that Luka can have. And I know
Yeah.
we negatively associate it with the heliocentric style, and like there's a lot of like, well, they can't win a title. Jason Kidd is all about getting guys paid. That's like been the thing, his whole mantra, right? For NBA players, the whole Jalen Brunson saga, just want to get that guy paid. So happy for him, so proud of him. Luka Doncic gets guys paid. Like, he just straight
Mhm.
up does, because you get so many open opportunities, and as long as you capitalize to a certain extent, like, you're going to put up decent enough numbers where either the Mavs or another team are going to be forced to pay you to keep you in the league for 2 or 3 more years.
The guy's a walking triple double.
Yeah.
He can set you up. He's going to set you up for success because he's a walking triple double. He's got great vision. He shoots really well. He can rebound. Like, he's the type of guy I like the Mahomes comparison to pre Matt Nagy, by the way, because this year's not going great. And
No.
I'm very biased there. But I think Luka can be that guy that he's setting everyone up. That's why you see a guy like Derrick Jones kind of take off. He's going to put him in good position on
Yeah.
the court. And then with Jason Kidd as the coach, when that came in, I'm like, okay, that's a good coach for Luka. Like, I think that's a great fit, even despite what happened
In
his
certain
last stop.
respects, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, in terms of like the player Luka is, like, that's a guy I'd want in his ear. Now, how this Kyrie thing's gonna work? Who's Batman? Like, I mean, you're gonna have Batman and Robin.
Well, I don't think
Like,
there's any debate who Batman is, but
it's when you get into crunch time, is something gonna happen? Who's gonna want the ball? Like,
yeah.
that's why I call it a great experiment, is just because you don't know for sure. How's Kyrie gonna settle in? Is he gonna want more touches? Is he gonna want the ball? Like, is Luka gonna want the ball? Is he gonna pass it off? Like, I talk about him being a
Yeah.
great facilitator and the walking triple double he is, but when it comes time for the big moments, who's going to be that guy, and is someone going to take a shot they shouldn't take? Like, I think of it as it's Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. I have a similar conversation with.
Sure.
DeMar should be the number one option, but Zach's getting paid the most money as your 3-point shooter. So
Yeah,
that's part of the
I think the
it's
one
apples and oranges, but
I
that's
think the
how I
one
kind of compare the
distinction
two.
there is that DeMar DeRozan is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Zach LaVine is not, right? At least
Yeah.
not yet. Plays 10 more
Hall of
years at the
very good.
Hall of Very Good right now, and room to grow still. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are Hall of Famers.
Right.
And you can't they have to buy in together with getting satisfied with either one of them taking an opportunity at the end of the game and taking a good look. Like it's just about, are we making the right play? Right? You have to the old LeBron adage, right? It was like he didn't want to
Mhm.
take the shot, but he always made the right play. And
Right.
a lot of people were always like, well, he doesn't have that knack, that Jordan in him, that he wants the ball, that he always wants to take that shot. First off, Luca has that. If he wants to
Mhm.
take the shot, he will take the shot. I have seen
Sure.
enough step back threes from the left wing last year in as many clutch games as we played, and he missed a lot of them because they were from 37 feet away from the basket, but he will take the shot and he has no problem with it. I think more importantly for me, which I've seen through the first 4 games, and maybe the most impressive kind of change in this Dallas Mavericks team, is that they've been engaged defensively in the last 5 minutes of the game, particularly Luka. I don't care if he takes a possession off in the second quarter, the third quarter, but in the last 5 minutes, if he is engaged, he can stay in front of guys,
Mhm.
not reach in, not foul, like we were talking before we got on the air about the Clippers Lakers game. Paul George fouled out, Norm Powell fouled out.
Yep.
Um, someone else fouled out, I think, too, in that in OT.
I thought it was just the
Maybe
two
the
of them.
two of them, but that makes a huge impact, right?
Oh yeah,
Luca
absolutely.
being a disciplined, engaged defender in the last 5 minutes. Uh, Kyrie will have his moments, and then how much of a difference it's made to have Derek Lively on the court defensively in the last 5 minutes of games too, and that guy making the right decisions. 4 years into the league, and he knows what he's doing with the ball, which is like,
Yeah.
I can't believe he's not having JaVale McGee bonehead plays, but he's not.
Yeah. The one who came close to fouling out, by the way, was Westbrook and Zubac.
Westbrook had
They both
5.
had 5.
Yeah,
They both had 5.
right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm from it's an outsider perspective, definitely with my thought with where I stand on Luca and Kyrie working together. You're in the weeds. You watch them all the time. Well, I don't get many Mavericks games. Like
Yeah,
I get the Bulls games and national TV, and with working my night shifts with on 3, and then
you're a
especially during
busy
football
man,
season right
dude.
now.
Yeah.
Dude, I drink a lot of coffee. It's it's a lot going. Once I get into like December and stuff, like I start getting more in the weeds. Okay, what are other teams doing? Like I start getting a little bit more well versed in what's
So
going
early
on.
right now.
Oh, and again, it's 5 games in. Like there's a lot to be figured
Oh
out.
yeah,
I
yeah.
everybody's everybody. I love the overreactions. I love the passion. I mean, good and bad overreactions from
Right.
all different fan bases. You're 5 games in. It's a long season. You never know how things are going to turn out the rest of the way, because the Lakers started off really, really bad last year,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they found it, and you saw what happened. Like
The second
anything can happen.
in the second half without LeBron James too, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think last takeaway of this game, these two teams, unfortunately, I think the performance and what we're gaining perspective wise from the Bulls is probably more on the nose of what they're going to be in 3 months, as opposed to the
Right.
Mavericks, which it's too small of a sample size to really know whether or not they're a true contender. Kyrie and Luca need to play 15, 20 games before we can start making our real assessments about that.
Exactly.
But
If Kyrie Irving was on the court, I'd have a better sense of where the Mavericks are.
yeah,
But and that's just because the Bulls' game plan was okay. No Kyrie, let's shut down Luca, and other guys beat them
yeah.
because 2 guys made 7 threes.
Who do y'all play? Who's on the schedule next? Y'all have a game tomorrow?
Yeah, Friday they've got the Nets to start this in-season tournament, which I'm really intrigued by. I don't know what to expect. CJ and I talked about that at length today. I don't know what to expect from this in-season tournament, but they got the Nets next, and they got the Nuggets on the second half of a back-to-back on Saturday in Denver. Nothing could go wrong there.
After we play them, I think on Friday, right?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, which is
Yeah, because
that'll be a fun matchup,
you guys have the night game on ESPN,
right? To
and
start off the tourney against the
right.
Nuggets, they want you to
I
watch
don't know.
that Mavs
I don't know what
Nuggets
to
game,
expect
not the
from this
Bulls
game.
Nets.
That's fine. That's fine. I don't like when the Bulls are on national TV. So, and
Yeah,
then they're on NBA TV on Saturday against the Nuggets. I don't. you could ask CJ. Whenever the Bulls are on national TV, my instant reaction is, "Oh, great," because then everybody gets to see what's going on.
Hey, how
I have
about
this. It's
49
a little
point
different
Zach
than my
LaVine
thoughts on the
game though
Bears.
is what you'll take on national TV. He will.
He
He'll
had 51.
51,
He
51.
had,
He'll
he
take
had
it.
51. He
I
had 51 and no points, and they lost the game.
I know. By a lot.
How do you lose a game? How do you lose a game when a guy goes 51? Like that
What was the margin of it? They won by like 20 points, didn't they?
against the Pistons,
Yeah, wasn't it
they
15?
lost.
No, I'm saying
Uh,
sorry, I'm saying the Pistons won by
oh, the
15 to 20
Pistons won.
points.
Okay, I'm like, yeah, I know I'm like the Bulls lost that one because Zach had no assists. He went full Kobe Bryant level, like not all score, no passing. I know Kobe passed the ball, but my iPad's having some issues with ESPN here, but I'm trying to
I'm
see
pretty
how
sure it was like 120 to like 105 or something like that.
118, 102.
Yeah, it was, yeah,
Yeah,
16 points.
like
I'll tell you
yeah.
who
So
before we wrap here, just a guy on the Pistons because they're kind of one of my league pass teams. So much young talent on that
I
squad.
love the Pistons.
Jalen Duren is awesome.
Yes,
He's
big
awesome.
fan.
The Knicks
Big. I'm
missed
a fan.
the Knicks missed out on him.
Yeah. Yes, they did. Like it's that. Think of. I mean, these young names. You got which is it? Asar is the Thompson twin they
Yeah,
have.
Osar is on.
They've
Yeah, yeah,
they've
yeah.
got Asar. They've got Jalen Duren. They've got Cade Cunningham. They've got Jaden Ivey off the
Off the
bench.
bench. Yeah.
Like yeah. Like and you got Joe Harris. You got Marvin Bagley. Like you. There are
I
some
think
dudes.
Monte Morris is coming back for them, which will be helpful. And
I think so. Like
Bogdanovich
you.
obviously hasn't played yet, so like
There are dudes on this team,
that
and
again,
Monty Williams is their coach.
that's the parity, right? Like that's the team that you probably don't want to play on a random night, and you'd
No, I
expect
would.
if you're a Mavs team, you'd expect you're going to win. But guess what? You might walk away with an L against that team, and that's just the
My
reality.
pipe dream is the Bulls and Pistons rivalry coming back, but I don't see that happening as long as the Bulls are bad. We'll see.
Okay, well, we'll
We'll
move
see.
on from the dreary outlook. Positivity going forward for Nikki Schultz and the Bulls. Of course, he and CJ are going to give it to you real. They're going to give it to you straight up. You go check out Believe in Bulls. Of course, you're listening to this on Believe in Mavs, Felts and Toss. Raymond will be joining me soon, and we're going to talk about, I'm sure, everything that's going on in the league. Luca, Zach LaVine, where Zach LaVine will be headed next is probably going to be
Trade
one of
rumor
our topics.
season's already starting.
Yeah. But Nick, thanks for joining me, man. Tough luck for the Bulls on this one, but I'm hoping that they get a win on Friday against the Nets. I'm rooting for them.
Hey, I'm just glad one of us was happy today, and you know what? I'm wishing all the best to you, man. Enjoy the ride. As long as you're undefeated, if you're number one seed right now. I
Hey.
know it's 5 games in, 4 games in. Take it and run. Enjoy it.
I'm sure people are taking screenshots, bookmarks of all the Mavs fans that are saying, "Oh, look at us undefeated," and they're going to throw it back in our face when the Nuggets are back atop the number one seed in the West in the middle of the season. That's it for this time. Believe in Mavs, believe in Bulls. Thanks, Nick.